All right, good morning everyone. Let's see if everything is working here. Yes. Welcome to Work Package 7. Our topic is the, well, not enforcement, we've changed the title actually since the beginning, but we are focusing on health effects and regulatory implications of e-cigarettes and novel tobacco products. Oh yeah, there we are. So to set a little context, the TPD has been implemented since 6 years, and since then the tobacco industry has been developing many new products, very often searching the borders of regulation. So I put some examples on the slides here. There are a lot of new disposable e-cigarettes that have been becoming very popular recently. There's the nicotine pouches that you might know. There are some nicotine inhaler products. There are new types of HTP products. So in our Work Package 7, we are aiming to find out what are the health effects, or what do we already know about the health effects of these products, and also what does this mean for regulation? Is the TPD still sufficient in protecting public health with respect to these products, or do we have some new recommendations? So how do we do that? We have 4 aspects in our work package. First of all, we need to know which products are on the markets or are going to be on the markets in the different member states, and which regulations are already in place. Then, of course, we want to evaluate the health risks, and health risks are meant in a very broad sense. So I also mean there the things like abuse potential, attractiveness of these products. So we're also looking into perceptions, for example, of users. Then thirdly, we want to know, is there any information available regarding adverse events that have been reported by users of e-cigarettes or novel tobacco products? And finally, we will integrate all of this information and try to make some recommendations for regulators about these products. So I'll go into a bit more detail about all these aspects. First part of our task was the investigation into the markets. We are using EU-SEC information, so information provided by manufacturers to the EU-SEC system. And you can see that we have defined some research interests that we want to look at into in the EU-SEC database. So this includes, of course, the number of products that are on the market in the different countries. Also, are there differences between the products that have been reported in EU-SEC? What type of products are there? For example, we also included the herbal products in this case because there are quite some developments in that category over the years. So we want to see what type of products have been submitted, what type of herbal products, but also are there different types of novel tobacco products. We all know the HTPs, but maybe other things have been submitted also. For e-cigarettes, the type of products are more different types of e-cigarettes. So for example, I already mentioned the disposables, which seem to raise in popularity. So how is the balance between disposables and reusable e-cigarettes? What do we know about all the e-liquids that have been submitted to EU-SEC? Of course, we will look at the brands and the manufacturers. We will focus on ingredients. So for example, we will look at the top so many ingredients reported. So which ingredients have been reported the most frequently or in the highest concentrations in these products. And of course, there are some specific ingredients that are more of interest. So of course, nicotine concentrations, but also in the e-cigarettes, the nicotine salts. You can also think about flavors and flavorings that are of interest. And for the herbal products, we are also looking at cannabis-like ingredients. And for e-cigarettes, we will also have a look into device characteristics, although we already know that these are not reported so very frequently in EU-SEC, but it's good to at least find out what information is there and if we can use it for assessment of health risks. So this is an investigation that's going on. As Benoit already mentioned, we have received some data sets from 4 countries now that we are working on, and we are expecting to receive more data sets from other countries at the end of this year. So hopefully we can make a very broad investigation into the markets in many European member states. Today we will have a very little breakout session with some of the partners in this group to just sit together and look at this data. So if you're interested in EU-SEC data and you want to know what kind of information is there or what it looks like, feel free to join that session. It's in the early breakout session. I think the room is in the program as well. So the second part of getting an overview of products and regulatory measures is a questionnaire that we set out. I think many of you have already received it maybe. And in this questionnaire we had questions about products that are on the market outside of the products that are regulated in the TPD. So for example, nicotine pouches, accessories that provide flavor to tobacco products, just to see what kind of products are on the markets in the member states that we cannot find in EU SEG. And also if there is any additional regulation in place on top of the TPD. We've obtained the results. We've presented them already in a previous meeting, WHO meeting on novel tobacco products in Copenhagen this spring. And based on that meeting, the data have been seen by most of the member states. Some adjustments have been made. And we recently published our first deliverable. It's a report on the regulation of novel tobacco products and e-cigarettes in the different member states. The report has been disseminated to many partners and stakeholders of the joint action, so you might have received it as well. If not, you can find it on the website. Then for the second part of the puzzle, the assessment of the health risks of these products, we've been developing an approach for that based on this framework that has been previously published by the RIVM. In this framework, we list all factors that are contributing to the attractiveness, addictiveness, and toxicity of tobacco products and related products. And these factors we also want to assess in this whole task about evaluating health risks. So you can see a list of some of these factors on the right side. Not all of this information is present in EU SEG data, which is our main data source. But we are also planning to use, for example, literature or Eurobarometer data if EU SEG data is not sufficient to answer our questions, especially for products that are not in EU SEG yet, of course. So based on this approach, we will aim to classify the products that are in EU SEG based on their health risk profiles. So for example, we will look at ingredients or potentially emissions that have been reported there, and we might be able to say that products that contain these and these and these ingredients which pose a health risk might have a higher risk than other products who do not contain those ingredients. For example, that would be our ideal approach, but of course we are dependent on what information is present and what we can learn from that. So we have also a meeting on this task today, a breakout session. It will be in the later time slot. So if you are a partner in this task or you are interested in discussing this topic, feel free to join. Then another part in this task, as I already mentioned, is not just the product information, but we also want to know about the users. So we have developed some research questions to evaluate awareness, use, perceptions of these products, user trajectories. These are the questions that we have developed, and we will answer them using literature reviews. So our colleagues from Italy have already done an extensive systematic review on HTP, so we will be able to use their collected information, which is very helpful. But we're also planning to do a review or maybe an umbrella review regarding e-cigarettes. So let me show here. Data that we will be using is first of all Eurobarometer data, but then also scientific literature, as I mentioned. And the scope will be for HCP products more worldwide, because there is a little bit less publications than there are for e-cigarettes. So for e-cigarettes we have to tone in it a little bit, and then we are only focusing on European data. And finally, we are also planning to create a questionnaire to obtain some information from users, particularly if we find any knowledge gaps in the literature. We will hopefully be able to answer those with the data from the questionnaire. We will also have a little breakout session for this class today, so if you're interested to join that, feel free. And particularly if you're a partner in this task. Then finally, this information will be integrated. So on the one hand, we have the product properties and the information, the classification based on the EU SEG data. On the other hand, we have information from the users and the perception. So we will integrate this together and hopefully write an interesting scientific publication. But that's a little bit more in future. The third piece of our puzzle was about the adverse events. That's of course a very complicated task because first of all we need to find out if adverse events are reported, adverse events related to e-cigarette use and novel tobacco product use particularly. Because as you can imagine, if people go to their physicians or lung physicians with complaints, a physician might ask, oh, are you a smoker? But a physician might not ask, oh, do you also use nicotine products or do you use e-cigarettes? So it's a bit more tricky to obtain that information, and it's also very unclear if there are any structures in place in the different countries to collect this information, if it's maybe collected somewhere on a national level or only on local places. So we are trying to find this out. Our colleagues from BFR have established a questionnaire to get this information, but it's a bit difficult to just disseminate this question and expect this information to appear. So we want to support our partners in gathering this information. So that's also why we have also a meeting today for this task. So it would be very useful if someone from every country participating can join our meeting, or at least the partners in the task, so that we can also discuss together where we can find information about the collection of adverse events. So if we know if adverse events are reported and where they are reported, or by whom or which institutes, then we can also find out if we can collect this information and can learn something from it. That would of course be the ideal situation in the end, if we can find out if there are any adverse events reported from e-cigarettes or novel tobacco products. What kind of complaints are there? Are there any patterns over all the countries? That would be very interesting, but of course there might be also issues with sharing this data, so it's not such a straightforward way. But finally, we aim to at least provide some recommendations for a harmonized approach of collecting adverse events related to these products. So then finally, we will integrate all of this information and report to the regulators. We are planning to make some information sheets based on the classification of the products and their health risks. And also we will have a workshop or a webinar to disseminate all this information to the regulators. I think that was the end. Yeah, thank you.
So are there any questions? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne.